Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2025 Wyndham Championship Data Dive Show. Going to be a quick show this evening. I am broadcasting during the middle of a thunderstorm, and my internet has been really spotty all day today. So I don't want to waste any time. Let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You won't regret it. The description has all of the social media info, my X and Instagram, where I posted research earlier today. I'll try to get to that at the end of the show. Also, make sure you check out and follow Gabe's social media page. That's where we place our 2025 picks for the challenge and our detailed write-ups. Make sure you're subscribed to his article. And then lastly, for the intro, this abbreviated intro, we're live, chat's open. Jump in there with any thoughts and opinions you have. Did you make any wagers? All that good stuff. The thunder is quite literally, seemingly right above my house. So if I get a little distracted squirrel, you'll understand why. But let's get into it. Let's dig into the weeds of the data for the 2025 Wyndham Championship. And we are going to start, as we always do on a Monday evening, over at the extended look of the forecast for Greensboro and the Wyndham Championship. I was interested to see what the weather forecast was going to be like. If they've gotten a lot of rain, then it's probably going to soften the course up, make it play easier than what it has in the past 2 or 3 years. Indeed, or sure enough, they have gotten some rain, supposedly a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow. There is rain in the forecast for Thursday, quite a bit actually. Middle of Thursday and Friday. They're going to have some wind. So it looks like they are dealing with some weather down in Greensboro, North Carolina. So we'll have to be aware of that, see if any wave advantage develops. But, it's too far out to determine that as of now. Good evening, John. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Probably going to be a shorter show since I am broadcasting during the middle of a thunderstorm, but I'm going to try to get to all of the information that I can. Really appreciate you jumping in the chat this evening. So there's a look at the forecast. Depending on what others may be saying, around the golf gambling Twittersphere and all that stuff, I might change my thoughts and opinion on looking at easy this week. We're definitely going to look at some wind, considering there is going to be an amount of wind and a decent amount looking like most of the tournament. So there's a look at the forecast. We'll update this Wednesday at the start of the DFS Tactics show, see if a wave advantage does indeed develop. So we'll come over to Fantasy National, and I went ahead and preset this for this year and moderate and windy conditions. So the players in the field this week who have performed best this year in moderate and windy conditions: Hideki, Keegan, Alex Smalley, Sung Jae, Lee Hodges, Danny Walker, Lucas Glover, Patrick Rogers, Ryan Gerard, and Nikolai Højgaard are your top 10 in terms of performance in the wind. There has been one more field change today. There were a couple last night, or several last night. One more today, as Mackenzie Hughes has decided not to play. So Mackenzie Hughes has withdrawn. And I don't know if Fantasy National has loaded the qualifiers, Monday qualifiers. It doesn't appear to be so. Maybe they have. Not sure. But Mackenzie Hughes is the most recent field change that I have seen. That was, earlier this evening for the Wyndham. All right, let's go ahead and jump over to Microsoft Excel. Take a look at some deep statistical dive data surrounding Sedgefield and the Wyndham Championship. Again, the two main shot types are what is being enhanced here at Sedgefield, considering the total values here. Off the tee is heavily outweighing the around the green, and we saw that graphically last night. And the around the green is falling year over year, while the off the tee has been pretty consistent. There was a pretty big spike in 2020. I think we can attribute a lot of that, or at least some of that, to 2020 just being a ridiculous year. But going from 2021 on up, off the tee has steadily risen in terms of importance. Putting, generally not the most consistent statistic. You have two outliers, one each way. If we compare Sedgefield against the average full field course, you see the emphasis on off the tee, but it's really in the fairways. Like I was mentioning last night, distance is absolutely not mandatory around Sedgefield. Like Kevin Kisner's saying from a few years ago, we're all trying to hit it to the same spot. It's just who can execute the best. So we're looking at fairways, really not necessarily good drives or greens, because these greens are pretty darn easy to hit. Most of these players will hit the green. So a lot in fairways, considering the driving. But we might take a slight peek at off the tee. Approach, clearly going to be important. We're not going to overlook that. It's been a consistent metric for the past 4 years, and then again a spike in 2020. Around the green has fallen off year over year. I don't foresee around the green playing all that much. And then we'll take a look at some fast Bermuda like we did. And while I'm thinking about it, let me grab my notes here. We might actually take a look at some specific champion Bermuda. It'll be a small sample size, but it'll be interesting to look at all the same. Moving to fairways and greens, again, distance just does not matter. A huge outlier in 2023 for Lucas Glover's win. But other than that, you've seen it's actually been a negative factor 1 year in 2021. Just not that much to it. Not that much to it. 11% less important. So not going to look at anything distance. We might have like 5% off the tee, because off the tee does emphasize distance generally. We're just going to focus on fairways. Fairways have been kind of the thing here around Sedgefield. Don't think we're going to look at good drives or greens. We might take a look at good drives, considering they're slightly more than the full field course average, but not really all that much. Moving to scoring, that's a huge number there. So we're definitely going to be more looking at the birdies or better gained. Eagles happen quite often around Sedgefield, so we definitely don't want to ignore possible eagles. That's why we'll be looking at birdies or better, not just birdies gained. Bogey avoidance, not really that big of a deal around Sedgefield, considering I don't think they've had a round of difficult in a long time. It's either average or easy. Not to say that bogeys can't happen around here, because there are a couple of very difficult holes at Sedgefield, but we're mostly concerned with birdies or better. And then moving into par 3s, 4s, and 5s. Par 3s, pretty evenly split, and we saw this last night. There is one par 3 that measures to each of these ranges on the scorecard, and we see that they play, generally speaking, pretty evenly. Now, yes, the 200 to 225 seems to be the most important, but that is not nearly enough of a total number to factor it out by itself. So anything we look at in par 3s will be done in totality, total par 3s. Par 4s, on the other hand, different story. Par 4s are very important. This is a par 70, so we don't have many par 5s to take advantage, or the professionals don't have many par 5s to take advantage of. Par 4s, 18.5% more important than the average full field course. A lot of it, almost all of it really, coming in the 400 to 450. So this might be a week where, kind of like last week at the 3M, where we put a decent amount of emphasis in total par 4s and look at 400 to 450 separate, because you see almost half of the strokes gained are in this range. 2.5 in the 400 to 450. You see the par 5s are only a 1.2, so this range alone is more than double the importance of the par 5s. This range alone is much more important than the par 3s. So we definitely want to put an emphasis on these 400 to 450 par 4s. And then the par 5s, the last 2 years they haven't stretched either of them beyond 550. So we might just look at this range here. But even so, they're not adding all that much because there's only 2 of them. They're quite mitigated around Sedgefield, and that's generally the case when you have par 70s with 2 par 5s. Par 5s just get mitigated. 29% less important. We'll look at proximity, and this is what I was interested in looking at last night, considering the humongous amount of approaches that come from 150 to 175. But look, it's actually been less important than the average full field course. This is why I'm not too keen on proximities, because they just don't, they are not very consistent statistically. You see, the past 2 years have been really, really low. Now, the first 3 years, 2020 to 2022, they were pretty important. Now, the 125 to 150 has started gaining some traction. You see that there. So, perhaps players are getting a little bit more aggressive off the tee, taking more 3-woods or even drivers, leaving themselves with shorter clubs, even if they're in the rough. It's just a working theory. Not sure about it. Prox total might also be something, considering this huge number here. They had one, kind of low outlier, but there's one high outlier. So it's actually been pretty consistent. You take away the 2 outliers there. So maybe we look at total prox, considering these greens are fairly large. They are undulating. They're sloped. I can see an argument for total prox. To see guys and players who are generally hitting it closer than their opponents. I could see that as well. So there's a look at some of the deep statistical data and the dive into it for Wyndham and Sedgefield Country Club. We'll go back to Fantasy National. Let's take a look at a few of these things here that we want to take a look at. We looked at off the tee last night. I'm trying to think if there's any filter that I want to use. Maybe short course, because there are some forced layups and such. So on short courses, listed as less than 7,200 yards per Fantasy National, your top off the tee players in or on short courses: Keith Mitchell, Patrick Fishburne, Austin Eckroat, Taylor Moore, Siwoo, Rico Hoey, Patrick Rogers, Carson Young, Sam Stevens, and Aaron Rye. Skipping Cameron Champ, he is an alternate as of the moment. Skipping Johnny Vegas, he is already withdrawn. So there's a look at your top off the tee players when it's short. I'm not sure if that's going to be the filter I use for off the tee. Maybe it's easy if I hear that they've had a lot of rain and the course is very soft. But I think that's a decent compromise for now, is to look at short courses. Your strokes gain approach leaders in the field this week at the Wyndham: Henrik Norlander, Akshay Bhatia, Hideki, Bud Cauley, Lee Hodges, Ben Griffin, Joel Damon, John Pack, Lucas Glover, Victor Puri are your top 10 approach players the past 36 rounds. Now we'll bring in some putting, fast Bermuda putting. Your top putters: Jacob Bridgman, Taylor Montgomery, Matt Kuchar, Denny McCarthy, Jesper Svensson, Zach Johnson, Max Grazerman, Nico Echeverria, Patrick Rogers, Garrett Higo, and Gary Woodland. Skipping Mackenzie Hughes, he is withdrawn. If we want to take a look at spike percentages very quickly, who spikes the most on fast Bermuda greens? Let's go with 2. You can argue what number that needs to be. I'm going to set it at 2 players who have gained at least 2 in their rounds in terms of putting. Takumi Kanaya, so he's gained 2 or more strokes on the greens, 1 of his 2 rounds, so it's a very small sample size. Taylor Montgomery, 40%. Jesper Svensson, 40%. Zach Johnson, Gary Woodland, Christian Bezuidenhout, Matt Kuchar, Chesson Hadley, Akshay Bhatia, Chad Ramey. All of these players have spiked at least 25% of the time. So at least 1 round in a tournament, on average, they've been spiking. So interesting names there to consider when thinking about wagers or lineups for the week. Jesper Svensson, 4 out of 10. Taylor Montgomery, probably 4 out of 10. No, 5 out of 15. 5 out of 14, maybe. Interesting. Putt very well on Fast Bermuda. Zach Johnson, Gary Woodland, not known for his putter, but he has been spiking on Fast Bermuda greens. Did 3 times at the Houston Open. It's a different specific type of Bermuda, but still Bermuda. He did it at the Wyndham last year for a round. Charles Schwab. Well, those were bent. Colonial. Yeah, Colonial has bent. So I don't know why that's coming up with Bermuda there. That's weird. Wells Fargo, Quail Hollow. So he's done it a little bit. Interesting name. If we want to take a look at specifically Champion Bermuda, I will take us all the way back to 2022. But we have 3 courses to look at here. We are going to take a look at the Country Club of Jackson. We're going to look at Sedgefield and TPC Southwind. TPC San Antonio, Scottsdale, Southwind. These 3 courses have specifically Champion Bermuda per the GCSAA. So not a whole lot of rounds here. 34 is the max by Jaeger. Your top putters on Champion Bermuda: Lonto Griffin, Jacob Bridgman, Taylor Montgomery, Max Grazerman, Ben Griffin, Hideki, Sammy Valimaki, Vince Whaley, Garrick Higo, and Sungjae. So it's interesting to note here, Sungjae, who was the strokes gained total leader at Sedgefield the last 5 editions. Ben Griffin, T4 to T7 here. He's played very, very well. Max Grazerman played very well last year at the Wyndham. I believe he finished in the top 5. You see, he's gained 6 in 1 round. Huge spike. Montgomery, again, more putting for him. Bridgman played well here last year, I think. Wyndham. Yeah, top 15. Unfortunately, it's getting covered up by the subtle reminder to, hit that like button and subscribe. But top 15 here, so interesting. Interesting list of names there too for this Champion Bermuda. Okay, we'll move now to fairways and greens, and it's all really in the fairways gained. That's what we're going to be looking at. So on short courses, I'm going to try to keep it consistent with the off the tee. On short courses, your top fairways gained players. Look at that. Defending champion Aaron Rai leading the way. Carson Young, Ben Coles, Austin Eckroat, Takumi Kanaya, Andrew Putnam, Lucas Glover, Davis Thompson, Grayson Sigg, Bryce Garnett. So I know fairways are extremely important. That's the specifics about fairways on short courses. Your top fairways gained players just in the recency, who's been hitting fairways, who is in good form recently with fairways. Aaron Rai, Paul Peterson, Takumi Kanaya, Ben Coles, Bryce Garnett, Zach Johnson, Snedeker, Emiliano Grillo, Rico Hoey, Andrew Putnam. You see, the only one that's even remarkably or anywhere close to decent in distance is the best way to say that is Hoey. Grillo's about average in distance. Everyone else is at the extreme lower end of distance in terms of top fairway players. So we'll have a lot in terms of fairways, probably, considering though the astronomical number that we saw in Microsoft Excel in the data dive, or in the deep statistical dive. If we look at good drives, it's a lot of the same players: Aaron Rai, Carson Young, Joel Damon, Andrew Putnam, Siwoo, Doug Gim, Zach Johnson, Rico Hoey, Glover, and Peterson. So again, a lot of the same names. Most of the time, if I'm looking at fairways, I look at good drives. I mentioned this, I think, for the 3M. Might have been the Rocket. But with these greens being easy to hit, there is a decent argument just to look at fairways this week. So fortunately, I don't have to make that decision now. I can wait until Wednesday to do that. Scoring. Again, we're going to look at short courses. I think that's probably best. Your top birdies or better gained players on short courses are Luke Clanton, Max Graserman, Nico Echeverria, Jacob Bridgman, Chandler Phillips, Eric Cole, Tom Kim, Keith Mitchell, Jesper Svensson, Michael Thorbjornsen. We can take a look at opportunities as well. Opportunities on short courses: Clanton, Batia, Matthew Pavone, Jackson Suber. It's only 7 rounds, so don't get carried away with that. But at least in very small sample size, he has given himself a lot of opportunities. It was at the Sony, but he gave himself a lot of opportunities. Mitchell, Andrew Novak, Ben Griffin, Carson Young, Joel Damon, and Mac Meisner, skipping Wyndham Clark. He is withdrawn. Definitely going to look at proximity. So let's take a look at proximities. I'm going to sort on total procs, considering how outrageously high that number was. I can see an argument for both of these. Statistically, it said the 125 to 150, but in the course breakdown, or at least in terms of raw numbers, the sheer volume of approach shots would say it's the 150 to 175. So your top total procs players: Joel Damon, Hideki, Lucas Glover, Castillo, Batia, Shank, Brian Campbell, Nico Echeverria, Christopher Ventura, and Carl Phillips. Probably want to put a star next to Hideki. Solid in both of the ranges in question. Lucas Glover, Akshay Bhatia. Although we saw it last night, he has not had much success here at all. Interesting. Some other notable names here. Gary Woodland again. Put a star next to him. He's good at both, or he has been good at both of the proximities in question. Last 36 rounds this year. Grillo, Davis Thompson, 1st and 10th. He's probably the best here in that regard. Davis Thompson, 1st and 10th. Norlander, solid in both. Hey, Rose, thanks for jumping in chat. Very much appreciated. Nice one once again. Thank you. Appreciate that. I was on Kiriyama basically from the word go last week. Fortunate that I, obviously put in that win wager on him and the outright. I had a lot of Matt McNeely, so, it wasn't all sunshine and roses and all that stuff. I got plenty wrong for the 3M as well. But DFS was slightly profitable thanks to all the Kiriyama I played. And, of course, the outright makes it just a fantastic week. So 4 straight weeks. We're going to try to make it 5. Hopefully you had success at the 3M. and that you are ready for the final event of the PGA Tour regular season, the Wyndham Championship. So thanks again for jumping in chat, Rose. Much appreciated. I apologize if it feels like it's a rushed show or shortened. I am broadcasting in the middle of a thunderstorm, and my internet in general today has been real spotty. So if I start to lag or the stream gets cut, if I'm mid-sentence, you'll understand why. There's a look at some of the top proximity players. I'm not sure how I'm going to attack proximity this week. The more I think about it, the more I'm thinking total procs. I kind of like that, considering the way Don Ross typically designs his greens, that there's multiple tiers or quadrants, if you will, to greens. So players are going to have to know what quadrant to hit to. I kind of like proximity as a general thought. We looked at scoring, we looked at proximity. I'll take a look at par threes just very, very quickly, because they might have 5% in the mixed condition model. Lucas Glover, Batia, Chan Kim, Denny McCarthy, Nico Echeverria, Thorbjorn Olesen, Sam Ryder, Matt McCarty, Andrew Putnam, Garrick Higo are your top par 3 performers. Again, not going to have a whole lot of weight there. All of the weight's going to be in the par 4s. I will sort on total par 4s, but we're mostly focused on this range here, the 400 to 450. Keegan, Rye, Kevin Roy, Harry Hall, Alex Smalley, Michael Kim. All of these players are in the top 25 still. Hideki, Spieth, Seabez still in the top 25. Bobby Mack. There's your top 10 in terms of total par 4s. All of them still in the top 25 in this specific range. Bud Cauley's the first that falls outside that range. Thomas Dietrich, not very good at this length. So, interesting to note. If we sort on the specific length, Woodland, Rye, Hall, Michael Kim, Matt Wallace, who's been sneakily in form lately. Top 5 to 3M, made the cut at the Open. I mean, say what you want, a made cut at a major is a made cut at a major. Scottish was 50, made the cut. Top 25 the U.S. Open. So, I don't know. There might be something there. Jesper Svensson, Montecero, Grillo. Tagala, interesting to see that he is terrible at par 4s with the exception of one range. The range that matters at Sedgefield. So I'm not going to play him because he's still working his way back from injury. But if you're a big C Tagala fan or a truther, there's something here at least to go on. Spieth, Hideki, Roy. So there's a look at your top par 4 performers, and then par 5s. We're just going to look at 500 to 550. Lee Hodges, Tether Moore, Jake Knapp, Bridgman, Rye, Siwoo, Jackson Suber, Chan Kim, Kitayama, Bobby Max, Smalley. All right, we'll head back over to Microsoft Excel. We'll take a look at the players that have played the Wyndham Championship the past 5 years. So, John, this is like I was mentioning last night, how for whatever reason Fantasy National didn't have 2023 in its data set, but I was able to grab it somehow, so they've removed it recently. This is going back to 2020 performance specifically at Sedgefield. We'll sort first with, let's do off the tee. Let's not, gosh dang it, wrong way. Let's not ignore the off the tee. Cameron Young, just one time. Keith Mitchell has done Keith Mitchell things. Very good off the tee. Irons haven't actually been very good around Sedgefield, and he's not making putts. Stop me if you've heard that about Keith Mitchell before. Ben On's been very good around here, both ball striking and putting. So perhaps a sneaky play. I don't know how sneaky he'd be, but Sung Jae, not in a lot of great form, but he's been very good around Sedgefield. Matty Schmid, Then you have a lot of players who have only played it once. Davis Thompson, very good very good off the tee. Novak, leaving a lot in terms of success, a lot to be desired in terms of success because he hasn't. I don't think he's made one single putt in the 3 years that he's played here, losing 5 on average on these greens. But ball striking it well. Siwoo, Adam Scott, Jaeger, Eckroat. There's a look at your top off the tee players at Sedgefield the past 5 years. Now we'll go to approach. Top iron players at Sedgefield the past 5 years. Again, all these players just one time, including Tom Kim. Kisner, been pretty good here. There's Ben Griffin. So, interesting that, remember in Fantasy National, bring up the tournament history. Ben Griffin has a T7 and a 4th. Apparently missed the cut in 2023. You don't see that here, but we have it here. So apparently Griffin missed the cut in 2023, but hitting his irons well around here. Webb Simpson, no surprise. Siwoo. Lucas Glover. This was an interesting data point last night when we went through the research. Winner in 2023, but has really struggled other than that. So, quite interesting. Rye, defending champion, still negative in terms of putting. This is why I'm just not a big believer in putting as a long-term success. Like, I generally am going to try to find the good ball strikers and hope that they have good putting weeks, a la Kitayama last week, because it's just so hard to predict. Sam Ryder's been okay. Look at Hideki. Hideki's 0 for 2 here. He's been good with the irons. Really bad short game around Sedgefield. Lipsky, kind of interesting. McGreevy, 2 for 2. Your top putters at Sedgefield in the past 5 years. Tom Kim gained 12.5 the year he won. Grazerman gained 6.5 last year. Cole's putt well in 2 tournaments. Adam Svensson kind of forgot he was even on the tour because he's been so bad this year. Then comes alive at the 3M. He's putt well here. 3 for 3. Seabez, 4 for 4. Very good putting. Kisner, no surprise. He's putt well. Kuchar, 3 for 3. He's putt well here. Taylor Moore. McCarthy, only 3 for 5, but understandably putting well. Been on. Cam Davis. Normally, he's a good off the tee, decent with the irons, but he's putt well here and not ball struck it well. So, kind of the inverse of what you would think for Cam Davis. There's Sung Jae towards more of the bottom of your screen. There's some of your top putters at Sedgefield past 5 years. Let's go. I want to do something with scoring. Let's do birdies, I guess, because there isn't a birdies or better in recaps. So somebody like Tom Kim, Luke Clanton, that's only once been on again, 2 for 2. Webb Simpson, no surprise, pretty synonymous with the Wyndham Championship in Sedgefield. Kisner, much the same, very similar style player. Adam Scott. Trying to think of other birdies are better. Eric Cole in 2 tournaments. Max Grazerman last year was pretty solid in birdies are better. Chan Kim again 1 time. McCarthy, Siwoo. So there's a look at some of the players who have been good birdies or better. I'm gonna finish this portion out with par 4s. Data sort. Let's do all par fours, and then we'll see that probably most of it comes in here, as you can see. Been on Webb, Svensson again. Svensson's been very good at the par fours, not been good at all on the par fives, and yet he's had a decent amount of success around here. So something to pay attention to. Sungjae, very good on the par fours. Matty Schmid, 2 for 2. Taylor Moore, 3 for 3. 400, 450 has been his best range. Again, no surprise. Kuchar, he's really taken advantage of the shorter par fours. Kisner, been very good around here. Jaeger, been very good on these par fours. Siwoo, Cam Davis, Gary Woodland again, Ben Griffin. There's a look at some of your top par 4 performers. Last one, let's do proximity. I'm going to do total procs. I'll do total procs, and then I'll get into the research that led to what I posted over on social media. Best total procs players at Sedgefield the past 5 years. Siwoo, Matty Schmidt, Kevin Kisner again, Rye, Eckroat, Andrew Novak. I know there's others up here that's only one time. I'm trying to get players who have at least played it multiple times. Been on Sam Ryder, 3 for 5. Pretty good in terms of total procs here. There's Hideki again, but boy, just horrible in terms of performance. All of that because of the putting. Let's see, other top proximity players at Sedgefield. Lipsky, Gary Woodland, Glover again, Sungjae. So that gives you an idea on some of those players who have performed well at Sedgefield on these various statistics that we have been talking about tonight that seem like they're going to be important this week. All right, let's finish the show off with the research that led to what I posted over on social media. This is the winner matrix, how a champion of the Wyndham Championship performed at the Wyndham leading up to their win. I'm going to be honest with you, there is not a lot of consistency. The only consistency is inconsistency here. Take a look at Aaron Rye. Aaron Rye made the cut to a rather hideous made cut. His first year, misses the cut and then wins. So no form whatsoever in terms of at specifically Sedgefield. Lucas Glover, much the same, at least recently. 72nd, 2 missed cuts, a 54th, and then wins. Yes, he had some success, prior, but talking like in the recency, not a whole lot here. Whoops, sorry. Not a whole lot here. Tom Kim wins it his first year. He had never seen Sedgefield in competitive tournament play, and then wins. Kisner, a little bit of an outlier here. He did finish in the top 5 the year before winning, had a lot of success. Jim Herman hadn't played it for 3 years. JT Poston in 2019, 50th in a missed cut. So there wasn't a whole lot to go here. Don't be afraid to play somebody who has not had success at the Wyndham. It doesn't appear to be a big factor. It just doesn't. So let's take a look at recent form then. So if performance historically at Sedgefield doesn't matter, something has to. Let's take a look at most recent tournament. Well, off the tee, pretty darn inconsistent. Approach, pretty darn inconsistent. Around the green, something, but I want you to notice, take a look at fairways. Except for Aaron Rye, and you can kind of forgive Aaron Rye because he played the Open. Like, the rest of these players, like PGA, sure, that's also a major, but, I'm not going to fault a guy to have a bad week at a major, the tournament before coming to Wyndham. Every other player here, and I went back to 2016 because, If you go back further, it really starts to get inconsistent. So I cut it off at 2016. Other than Aaron Rye, everyone had gained in fairways. So they were in very, very good form with their off the tee in terms of finding fairways. They weren't spraying it everywhere. So that's one of the first things that I kind of noticed. That make sure the player or players that you're wagering and or using in your lineups have been pretty solid with fairways lately. And that's why I'm going to have pretty good emphasis in fairways come Wednesday night. Honestly, the rest of this is pretty darn inconsistent. Like opportunities, nothing. Eagles and birdies, not much. Double bogey avoidance, sure, but I don't usually go with that. Par 3s, 4s, and 5s, very inconsistent. So, in terms of the most recent event, they had at least gained against their peers, fairways gained. But the most telling thing was their just general recent form. Aaron Rye, top 5, top 10, runner-up, top 20, top 15, all within 2 months of his win at the Wyndham. Lucas Glover, sure, he missed the cut at the 3M, but top 5, top 10, top 5, top 20, all within a 2-month span, roughly, give or take a week, before winning the Wyndham. Tom Kim, top 10, top 5, top 25 at a major. Again, extremely good recent form. The outlier here is Jim Herman in 2020, and I think we can forgive that because 2020 was a ridiculous year. But every single one of these players, going back to 2016, where I have this, I don't want to say artificial, but this arbitrary cutoff, every single one of these champions of the Wyndham had at least one top 15. Most had multiple. You had a runner-up and a top 25 here, 3 top 20s, 3 top 10s. 2019, again, JT Poston, only 1 top 15, but still counts. Jim Herman's the outlier. 2 top 10s, 2 top 10s, and another top 25. 3 top 10s and a top 20. 5 top 20s, including 3 top 10s. Extreme recent form. Extreme recent form. On social media, I said I only went back to the Memorial. That was the first week of June. I had to make a cutoff at some point. If you include the Charles Schwab, which is the last week of May, there are a couple of more players that would qualify based on the criteria I put forward. The last thing I'll mention, and I didn't put this on social media because I thought it was pretty narrow. However, we've seen one Don Ross course up, until now on the PGA Tour this season. It was the Rocket Classic, Detroit. Take a look at the form of these champions from the Rocket Mortgage to the to Sedgefield. Runner-up, top 5, top 10, top 10, top 15. Rocket Mortgage, its first year was 2019. So you're not going to get anything further back. But that's a lot. That is a lot of consistent performance on these Don Ross designs. I didn't put it on social media, but go and take a look at the leaderboard for the Rocket Classic this year, and then see who's in the field this week for Sedgefield. This is a very, very strong correlation in a very small sample size of data. With the 3 criteria that I just put forth, gaining fairways in their most recent start, top 15 in the past couple of months, I want you to take a notice of all of these champions, and even though their most recent iron or strokes gain approach might not be the best, they'd at least shown what we normally would call spikeability with putting. Look at these spikes in performance with the irons. Rye gained 5.5 at the Rocket Mortgage last year. Look at the spikeability in irons with Lucas Glover, gaining 10 at the Barbasol, gained 6 at the Rocket Mortgage, 5 at the RBC Canadian, 6.5 from Tom Kim in 2022. Each one of these champions, except for Jim Herman again, each one of these champions had a tournament where they gained at least 4 strokes on approach against the field. So there's one there. Shoot, Glover had tons of them, 4 of them. At least one tournament where they go nuclear with the irons. So that's the third criteria. They had at least one tournament where they gained 4 on approach. Now, if you don't have access to Fantasy National, you can always reach out to me either in the comments of this show or over on social media to see if a player had a performance that I was talking about. But I don't like how using these 3 criteria, the fairways gained in the most recent event, top 15 in the past couple months, spikeability with irons, that only narrowed it down to 25 players. I usually try to get it smaller than that. Just wasn't able to. So there are 25 players that fit those 3 criteria. And as I mentioned, I set the cutoff at the Memorial. If you include the Charles Schwab, which is the last week of May, there's a couple more players and bigger name players that would be included in that list. I had to make a cutoff somewhere. I chose the Memorial. But that is what I have for you all in terms of a data dive show. I apologize that it might have felt a little rushed and it's a little shorter. But I wanted to make sure I covered everything during this, thunderstorm. I didn't want to lose internet, or if I did lose internet, I wanted to make sure I gave you all the information I had. So thanks to John and Rose for jumping into chat. Very, very much appreciated. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting and subscribing. I always appreciate it. I love what I do. Taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. I've had a very, very solid month. I'm going to try to keep it going. I'm sure the rails will fall off here soon. I'm going to try and delay that. Hopefully you've enjoyed the success that I've had as well. So thanks again for all the support, for all the wagers you've made so far this week for the Wyndham Championship, for all the wagers you're thinking about making this week for the Wyndham Championship. And until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.